They're live. We present them also with like honorariums when they sit for us, and a copy of the portraits that we do of them. We also create time-lapse videos of the paintings in progress, and then we overlay those with sound bits from the interview. So that way we can showcase them on social media so that other people can engage and network with those. And the nice thing about it, it kind of gives people an avenue to interact with those they wouldn't normally. And also we allow for like different fundraising opportunities for folks. So they can, you know, straight up just donate to a nonprofit, which we then in turn give away as honorariums or as gifts to different organizations that we work with. And we also sell like prints or cards with images of the paintings that we do. And those funds are also used for the same purposes. So it's pretty cool. So today we're going to be interviewing, or I'll be interviewing Dan. And Dan, you've dealt with different mental health issues and stuff. So we'll ask you about that, and you guys will be doing portraits of them. So to start out, Dan, does anybody go first? Does anybody have questions?
Is it okay if we work our sketchbook, or do you want?
Yeah. Okay. You can work with the sketchbook if you want to stop drawings and move around, get a different vantage point. Feel free.
Okay.
Yeah. So at your own pleasure. Yeah. So if you don't mind, kind of letting me know, like, how did you grow up in Philly? How did you end up here?
Yeah, so I'm from Philadelphia. I've lived here my entire life. Spent my childhood in a neighborhood called Tacony, which is in the northeast section of the city. And now I live in Fox Chase, which is also part of the larger northeast. Yep.
Very cool.
Philadelphia.
Yeah, and do you have, you know, friends or, well, I guess siblings or?
Yeah, I have an older brother, a younger sister, and I have 4 step siblings.
And how would you kind of describe your, you know, childhood?
I mean, it was, I guess you could say it was good. My parents did get divorced when I was 6 years old, which had a very significant impact on my life at an early age, but they did the best they could to keep us happy and, you know, provide some sense of stability throughout all that. As far as the neighborhood goes, it was where I grew up was not great. You know, the early childhood years, the street itself was good enough, and I had friends who, you know, was safe and, you know, we got along. But as I got older and started to branch out of the neighborhood a little bit more, I realized it was not as safe of a place as we thought it was when we were in our bubble. There was a lot of drugs, a lot of drug sales, and it was just a very violent place in many ways. So, yeah.
What ages were you there?
Well, I was there until I was 17. And no, 18, between 18 and 19 was when we left. Probably right in time, really, before a neighborhood like that will swallow you up. Yeah.
Okay. And then, so did you grow up then with like your mom or your dad?
Lived primarily with my mom, but we did spend time, you know, different amounts of time with my father throughout, you know, childhood and early adulthood. And he's still around, he's still close by. So, but yeah, the primary custody was at my mom's house.
And then, so at that point, what would you think is the, I guess, most difficult thing that you've had to deal with?
I guess if we talk chronologically, I mean, the divorce definitely impacted, why the different work, learn to identify as kind of a cornerstone memory related to depression and other difficult emotions that impacted me through young adulthood, or I guess more childhood. And, you know, seeing how that impacted me before I really identified it was, you know, it still impacts me to this day, but depression and anxiety related to that are definitely two of the earliest things that I dealt with.
Yeah.
And yeah,
Are those things that you were like diagnosed with as a kid, or like that later in life you kind of? like,
well,
did everything?
I suppose the challenge with diagnosis is having an adequate professional that will diagnose you, and also the patient saying enough to be diagnosed. I did see therapists at that time, but a frequent way of describing me that both my parents and other people describe, especially younger, was that there's a still water runs deep, which is just one of those things that's, you know, the way to describe, I guess, someone that people don't understand or can't voice difficult things to people in their life.
Yeah.
But I mean, I definitely dealt with depression and anxiety, knowing what that sounds like in my head now,
Mhm.
you know, what anxiety sounds like. You know, some of the earliest things were like, I mean, it sounds silly, but I don't know if I'm sure people go through, you know, when you're thinking about the next day and like who you're going to see and what kind of conversations you're going to have, you want to have things to say.
Yeah.
So you're having conversations in your head that are going to happen the next day, but you don't even know if they're going to happen. You can't fall asleep. It's like trouble sleeping related to that kind of anxiety was definitely something I went through when I was so young that I didn't even know that that's what it was. I just thought it was
Normal.
trying to have conversations planned in your head for the next day.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, there's the mental fog that comes with depression as well, that, you know, things you know you can do, they become undoable. So and I know an early memory of that was being in first grade, not too long after the divorce, and being asked to do what I recall being a pretty simple math problem, but my brain just froze. And I got severely embarrassed and, you know, had to be escorted out of the class momentarily, but like, because I cried. But it was just one of those things, like, I forget what they call it. It's kind of like tonic immobility or some sort of thing that happens when you're depressed. You know, it's like when you can't get out of bed or you can't do your favorite activity, even though you know you can do it. So that's like early memories related to sort of mental health things that grow in childhood. I wouldn't say I was diagnosed at that time, but just knowing what I know about those things now, that's what I was
That's how it was exhibiting.
dealing
itself.
with at those
Yeah.
times, yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
And did you find like different, I guess, do you have like support structures to kind of help you with that, or different people, like parents and, you know, siblings or teachers, like, were they accepting of?
I don't think anyone really knew what the layers of it were, you know. Like I said, I did go to a therapist, but it was a therapist because it was like, oh, your parents got divorced, so
Yeah.
you should go see a therapist. It wasn't like, we think you're depressed, you know, it was like, you're being too quiet. you're, you know, I don't know, and it wasn't really like you have mental health problems, and I don't even think that was really in the lexicon at the time. It was like, this kid has parents who got divorced, so what, you send him to a therapist. And I don't think I was really saying like, oh yeah, I like sometimes think what it would be like if I wasn't here, or like you're not expressing things like that, you know, when you're 7.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it really only progressed, you know, it got worse. And more like even, but less pronounced to other people, but it got worse, you know.
Is that because we got the fighting it, or?
I probably, yeah, I was suppressing or burying or not adequately dealing with those things, and but yeah, depression was the hardest. But in early life, early childhood up to early adulthood was the most severe thing I dealt with. And, you know, it eventually did lead to a suicide attempt when I was 13 that I didn't really tell anybody about until I was, I don't know, 25 or 26, not even my siblings or my parents. And it was kind of like a premeditated thing. I faked sick from school that day, and I think you know, I had a plan. I was gonna hang myself in the closet with a dog leash, and somehow, some way, I don't remember why, but my mom came home early from work. She was a teacher, and as I was asphyxiating, the door closed in my house, and I heard it. I guess I was still conscious, and I heard it, and I wasn't suspended. I was at ease, and I came to, and I broke everything down when I got in bed, and now you could say I was sick. I was faking sick, but I was like, I guess that's still the way to put it, but I was really sick in a way that was not, you know, some sort of cold or something. But yeah, I didn't tell anybody about that for even therapists I saw between when that happened and when more severe mental illness started to exhibit itself. I mean, depression and suicide attempt are severe enough, but I didn't really know at that time I was looking for more severe things. So, I mean, that was something that happened, you know, I don't know. I guess I've never really said that to a stranger, so I did feel good to tell that story in a way that I haven't really told it.
And do you think like you stopped because you were thinking about like the impact of the count on your mom and she like walked in while you were doing it, or?
Oh, I think I just heard the sound.
And it just scared you.
And I didn't really know what it was. I think I knew it was the door to our house, and you know, it was one of those, like, someone's home. You know, I didn't know who it was. I just heard the sound, and the sound kind of snapped me out of the. Almost, you know, it was probably not too much longer that I would have been unconscious.
Yeah.
No matter who found me or who came in, I wouldn't be here now. So, yeah.
So what changed between, I guess, then and like you said you were 25, that kind of made you click and be like, you know, this isn't, I need to get assistance with this.
Oh, well, I mean, there's a whole other period of time with, around 15 or 16, I started to have what are now, you know, would be characterized as manic episodes. Acting very out of character. You know, I'm generally a mild-mannered person, pretty even keeled, but around 15, around, it was like 16, I would have episodes of very erratic, confrontational, defiant, very hyperactive sort of periods of time that, it was when the conversation started to change around my state of mind and my mental illness, but I also I was smoking marijuana very heavily. Marijuana, talking about it unfortunately. But I smoked a lot of weed. I smoked way too much weed through, high school and early adulthood, and it only exacerbated symptoms that I don't know. I just thought I felt great. I felt creative at those times, like effervescently creative and social. It was like, people thought it was because I was doing cocaine or I was on uppers or something, but I was the manic episodes brought out a much more, I don't know, enjoyable side of my personality, but it also brought out traits that were not so enjoyable, like not being socially aware of the way your behavior impacted people, or the things you said, if they hurt people, or kind of, and it got more reckless. Like 15 or 16 was like, oh, this is great, and then it would be a crash. It would be a severe depression. The high manic would be great for a few months, and then it would just be a severe crash, and then a much longer depressive episode. And I kind of cycled like that, longer cycling. I know some bipolar experiences are more like, quick episodes. Mine would kind of draw out. Manic episodes would be pretty long, but the depressive episodes would be even longer. And the way my family described it to me was that it would be like, oh, well, he's safe, he's normal, he's quiet, he's staying home. But they also didn't know at that time that I was like, I wanted to jump in front of a bus, or I wanted to walk down the I-95 and jump in front of a tractor trailer, or I was constantly having suicidal ideation. I didn't act anymore after that, but it was, in terms of ideation, it was I had thorough plans, and what the question you asked earlier about was what if somebody found, some of the plans got to the point where it's like, is there undetectable poison? Is there some way I can do this that someone won't know that I did it? And, it was kind of getting to that point where it's like, that's just bad, that's a bad way to have your mind going. But the manic episodes, as I said, they got progressively worse. And particularly, in high school, around senior year, was one of the more severe ones. I had a job and I had money, so I was able to quit that job and spend all that money at the start of the manic episode that lasted about 2 months. And so that was the first time I emptied my bank account, and I got sent to outpatient rehab because my parents thought I was on heroin or cocaine or meth or something, but I was just manic, and like I said, I was getting high, but that was kind of to self-medicate in a way. It would make me feel more like manageable. I felt like I wasn't as erratic when I was getting high, but I don't know if that's true or not, but it was something that seemed to help. But but yeah, I got sent to outpatient therapy. I actually got kicked out of that because I was too defiant. I was a bad influence on the group. So I got kicked out of that. And then things kind of went a little bit calm, but that was because I was really depressed after that, it was probably like a good 4 or 5 years of just like depression.
Did you see that, or when you're going through that, did you experience it? I know probably now, the historical perspective, you see it as patterns of behavior or this cycling. So when we're, going through that, was that something that you kind of had hold of, or was
No.
it just, this is just how I.
It just felt, it felt great in terms of the manic, the mania felt, I mean, like I said, it felt like a whole different person, you know, which is why, you know, I kind of resisted the fact that it was like, that there was something wrong, you know, that, and we chalked it up to seasonal affective disorder at one point, which is, you know, more, yeah, it's just, you know, summer, winter, you know, happy in the spring and summer, sad in summer and fall, or winter and fall, until I had a really bad episode in the fall and winter. Like that was after, you know, early 20s was like was more depressive if there was an affect overall throughout that period. You know, it was kind of like undulating between normalcy and deep depression. But then, I don't know, 25, and I had the worst manic episode I ever had. I came back from working from a summer, going to a job I had the year before, working in schools. And the training session, I was very erratic, acting very strangely. The people I was employed with at the time tried to express that to me, and I lashed out and quit. And then there was 2.5 months of severe mania. You know, I once again drained my bank accounts, staying in hotels down in the center city and buying useless stuff, and, you know, buying weed and buying alcohol, and spending all my money again. And then once the money ran out, I didn't have a place, couldn't really go home. So I did spend some time, I wouldn't characterize it as homelessness. I had a home I could have gone back to if I got my shit together, but I didn't. So I did spend about a month bouncing around Center City, sleeping in the streets. You know, like I said, at the time, I was homeless, but you know, it wasn't that. It was just I was severely ill and not seeing it for what it was and not stopping. So that the ultimate culmination, the thing that ultimately kind of led to everything kind of crashing down was I destroyed a piece of public property in a fit of manic rage, and I got arrested, also subsequently assaulted by the police while being arrested, because I didn't understand what they were doing, and they also didn't answer any of the questions that I asked them. So I got beat up pretty good by 4 or 5 of Philadelphia's finest, before they accused me of having a bunch of stolen property, which is all the things I wasted my money on, was clothes and other things I had in a duffel bag. I also had some weed on me, so that was ultimately what they were able to pin on me, what besides the destruction of public property. But so then I had to go to mental health court. You know, I was fortunate, I was very defiant in court. I was still manic when I was going to court, that my rights were violated, and that, you know, I was assaulted by the police, and that should be what people are, oh, you should focus on that. But, you know, it was like, no, you have problems. We don't care what you say, you're being disrespectful, and, you know, stop talking to the judge like that. So I just kind of had to suck. I had to eat my words, and I just had to go. I luckily was able to get deferred. I could have ended up in criminal court. I ended up in mental health, the diversionary program, court mandated therapy. You know, at that time I had no job, I had no income, so it was all public assistance based. I was at the JFK mental health building on Broad Street, so it was all free state sponsored therapy. Luckily got paired with a very good therapist while also still having to go to regular court dates in the mental health court program. And in that program, I mean, you know, you talk about marginalized groups and marginalized mental health in the city is the way we treat people with mental health, particularly severe mental health, is abysmal. And seeing folks who the judge knew in a way that was like, oh, you're back again. Like seeing folks who were in mental health court and it was perpetually in mental health court.
Yeah, so it wasn't helping necessarily.
You know, I just saw that and I realized that I really was hoping not to have a life
Like that, yeah.
You know, so I went to the court mandated therapy once a week for about 1.5 years, and it broke off to every 2 weeks. And then I went for about 1 year longer after the mandate was, I was my court, I didn't have to go to court anymore, but I was still able to get free mental health services. And like I said, the therapist was, I mean, he's why I'm stable, why I am where I am today. You know, I guess you could count me as a success for mental health court diversionary programs. But, you know, I saw people who were just in a constant cycle of being there.
What do you think is like, what worked for you versus, was it just the type of issue that you were having, you know, with your brain, you just can't do this, or something you could regulate, or is it your
Well,
circumstance?
I just have to acknowledge my true privilege. You know, I'm a white male with a family. Like I still have family around. I still have family that let me live in a house. You know, like I didn't go to the shelter system. I didn't have to bounce around through public housing programs. Like, you know, whatever I went through with my family, them having to understand my condition, me having to work with them on my condition. I mean, beyond the like, I mean, I didn't even share about them trying to like commit me at a hospital and me like storming out. And that was another part of the whole episode was like, you know, they were trying to do something to help me, and I was not in any state to be. They told me they were taking me to the hospital just to get like checked out. You know, oh, we're just going to get you screened for your health. And the next thing I knew, I was there for 4 hours, and I was like, there was a crisis intervention specialist. They're like, oh, you can leave anytime you want. It's like, no, if I leave, that'll be used against me. I can't leave anytime I want. Can't leave until you tell me.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, the big part of it, beyond doing the work I did and having a therapist, is being in a place of privilege. You know, it's easy to say like, you know, I can't let that discount my own experience, my own stories, but it's true. I wouldn't be stable and, you know, like okay if I didn't have that privileged kind of support system that accepted me doing the work, you know.
So do you still see like your same therapist from them, or?
No, we parted ways amicably. He got a better job, I guess. Private practice would be my guess, because he was a very good therapist, and he told me I was okay. And, you know, I've just been using strategies, and it was cognitive behavioral therapy was the big thing we did. Just kind of like, so a big sort of mental management thing for me is learning to hear the voices of the different conditions that I have. So whether it be anxiety or depression or mania, and also knowing the phases of it. So, you know, it's like, you know, depression, paranoia, or I guess, you know, there's different steps, but there's kind of like a phase to before you go full manic. That is like there's a flimsy kind of layer, you know, you're kind of on shaky ground. At least that's how I feel. There's a shakiness to you. There's a vibration. You know, you're right before it, and if you feel that, if you can hear it, then you can pause. You can stop. You can go into a cocoon and kind of shut down and like get away from stimulus and really stop it before it gets really bad. And I've had close calls in the last 5 or 6 years, but fortunately, you know, I've stayed stable. relatively stable. So particularly in regards to the mania, like that is, mania and suicidal ideation are the two scariest things for me. Mania in that, like, even if I do everything I can, if I'm not being as aware of those thoughts and those patterns, it could break at any time. I could have another psychotic break and spend all my money, be broke and be washed out again, and that could be the last time that someone wants, I've lost friends because of it. People that I knew throughout the different phases that, like, before you know what it is, it's like, oh, you're just a shitty person. Like, you're a bad friend, you're unreliable, you come over and you scare my friends and you scare my family, and like, oh, what, you were fine 2 months ago, like, I'm just not gonna talk to that person anymore, I've lost friends because of it for sure. So, now I kind of have like a disclaimer when I meet new people. If I come to your house and I'm like knocking on your door at 3 o'clock in the morning and asking for a place to sleep, like, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
It could just be in a bad way, so just know that, but.
So what are, I guess since you've kind of, now gotten to a place where you understand what's going on with you, and have you found like, it's changed at all how you think about, the future? Because, a lot of mental diagnosis type things are lifelong, things that you're gonna have to battle, cope with and deal with. So even if you do well for like a period of time, like they can always, change or transform.
Yeah, I do. I mean, I know it does. I've held back, changing circumstances. Like, if I'm afraid to rapidly change circumstances. Whether it's like moving out of the city or moving, getting a new job, or, I want to live somewhere else. But, if I go live somewhere else, I know when I change locations or when I've traveling has triggered things before. So there's a hesitancy to do something different, do something new, because it's like, oh, if I go somewhere and I don't know anybody and I break down, like, I don't have support network. I don't have someone who can speak for me and say that, like, it's just a condition. It's not, he's not on bath salts or something. Like, it's like he's unwell, So yeah, it does. And then, one thing, the rash of celebrity suicides that have happened in the last decade or so, very notable people or people who are older, whether it's a Robin Williams or, other people like that, whatever somebody's been, they live with mental health conditions all their life, they seem to be doing well, and the next thing you know, they kill themselves, so living with suicidal ideation is, it's a condition unto itself. It doesn't, from what I know about the, the DSM, like the diagnostic manual, like, it doesn't really get treated as its own, as from what I understand, its own condition. I think it should, it's something I look forward to, in terms of like, I follow like the American Society for Suicide Prevention, and I I have the hotline number in my phone just in case for myself or anyone else that needs it, but that scares me.
Yeah.
It's something inside myself that, you feel like you have a grip on, but that's one that can come up even when you're not depressed, at least in my experience. It's just like, it's one I can't really put a voice to. Like I was saying, one of the coping mechanisms is hearing the voices, like hearing, one is like related to anxiety, which is really helpful. They call it the ruminator, and it kind of sounds like the Terminator, like Arnold Schwarzenegger voice. So it like adds a comedic element to it, makes those thoughts funny. So even if you're ruminating about something that's real serious, you put that voice on, it makes it funny. Don't feel stuck in it. But something like the suicidal ideation, I can't really feel like I can't put a funny voice on it or make it like, I just have to try to nurture it, be kind to it. And like, hey, you go away for a minute. But I don't think that'll ever go away. No, and just the bipolar, like mania, bipolar depression, mania, and, you know, no matter how much I have a grip on, then you get like lost, it's a false sense of security. You think, oh, everything's okay. But, you know, I know it will never be.
Well,
Like,
everything's
totally.
always changing, you know, like you can't, if you were standstill. But I feel like you're always, time's always going on, things are changing. Yeah. So what's something, you know, with all of this going on, what are some of the coping skills, like other than like bringing to the different, you know, feelings that you have? What are some of the other coping skills that you've been able to do? Yeah.
Spending time in nature and learning about natural history and natural science, you know, being really sort of diving into nature, you know, different times it would be like trying to obsess about different topics, but then when I really found natural science and natural history, it's like I could go all in on it, you know. I mean, physical fitness, not to like an obsessive point, but just fitness in general helps manage. I don't know. The science says chemicals, and I don't know. It seems to help. I don't know. I don't know the science, but
Have you gotten into like dieting?
no, I mean eating well, just in general. You know, I do my best to eat well, but I like, you know, I like fried chicken and I like things and beer, you know, so I try not to obsess over it, but it's the same thing as like when anything feels like it's going too far and you're unwell, you know, whether it's like a bad hangover that's very triggering for anxiety, you know, it's like, oh man, I gotta chill out, like this could get worse, you know, this could go beyond the Sunday morning coming down, like it could snowball, you know, and then the next thing I know, I'm like, you know, I feel like I'm fucking up and people are paying attention to me, and then like I lash out because people are saying, you gotta get your shit together, and I'm like.
That seems like a recurring thing that like when you feel like people are judging you, you tend to lash out, even if it's like we're initially trying to be helpful. It's
definitely an unhealthy coping mechanism I have, that I, you know, like it's something we talked about, examining looking at life through history. You know, historically, if someone was like, oh, you know, I think you're smoking too much and like, you know, you're staying out too late. It's like, well, I'll smoke more and I'll stay out later, you know?
Yeah.
Or, you know, whatever it is, now I know that it's not something, I hope it's something I've gotten a better grasp on, but it's not, it is, that was a behavior pattern that I had, particularly when I was younger, that, you know, I hear it now, it's defiance, it's a defiant, you know, particularly in the face of criticism, or even like, it could be even like a loving sort of piece of feedback, and kind of like, well, I'll show you, you know, it's silly, it's childish kind of thing, but it is the pattern, you know, so.
So what's something that you're to just change the tune a little bit. What's something that you're most proud of yourself for doing?
I mean, it's a different song with the same tune, is just being well, you know, like right now. I've had a job for, you know, not the same job, but I've been working for almost 6 years straight, so like that's, you know, everything was like either 6 months or, you know, a year, or, you know, it was like just so sporadic early on. It was very like transactional and short, and like we'd be like, oh, you don't have a job, so you have to get a job. And be like, okay, I'll work at the Christmas Village for 2 months. Like, oh, look at me, I got a job. It was like the same thing, defiance. Like, I got a job, so leave me alone for the next year. Like, but that was also oscillating with depression too. Like I said, it's the same. It all kind of, a lot of these patterns tie into being unwell, you know, like, and not even telling people that I was so unwell that I couldn't get a job. Like, I couldn't bring myself to go fill out an application because I felt unworthy, I couldn't do it, I
Yeah.
couldn't function, you know? So just, yeah, sorry.
Oh, no, sorry to interrupt, but, I feel like that kind of relates to, thoughts about how our society and stuff, it doesn't really work well for folks that aren't, that are, I guess, a little like neurodivergent or who operate differently, like there's not a lot of flexibility.
Yeah, yes, I'm just, for myself, just proud to be here, to be here right now. Like, I know it might sound a little cheesy, but it's, if I didn't kind of take the hand at the moment, that moment of crisis, like with, the state giving me an option, like it could have gone really bad, all it took was that, it wasn't the only moment, but it was like, that was kind of a real dose of reality. It was like, seeing the different paths and seeing the ones that were much more chaotic and much more like,
Yeah.
wow, I hope I can do better, I mean, you asked about like a fear for the future though, that's like, I remember thinking about that before I really knew what was going on in my head. It was like, I would have these recurring fears and bad dreams and thoughts of like, I'm gonna end up homeless and on the street, like I'm not gonna make it, I can't hold anything together, I can't stay well, I can't keep a job, I can't, it was like a lot of I can't. And then, you look at things like a historical lens and it's like, I did, I did graduate from college, I did get jobs, and now I do have, I've worked steadily, like, that's another, talking to that like internal voice is like, wow, those are the things I did, instead of like, I can't, I won't, I never, I won't, it's like trying to flip it positively, but like, I mean, you've known me for a while, like how I have kind of a realism kind of approach sometimes, and like that very objective like line is something that I have to like sometimes look at the way things are, I can't like, I try not to be one way or the other, just like see it very objective.
Yeah, like not editorialize.
It helps, that's one coping mechanism too.
Yeah.
But yeah, just being here, and just trying to be more present in that, like to be well and to be stable and to like have friends, and be invited to things, like be invited on family trips and be invited to parties and like be a regular guest at dinners, because, there was definitely a period, and my family has tried to deny it, but I know the truth, like I wasn't invited to family trips. People didn't want me to show up at Christmas. Like it was like, he'll just bring some kind of crazy bullshit to the festivities. So, and people in my family have coped with that in their own way. They kind of block out, they tell their own stories, and everyone tries to say, oh, I didn't do that. It's like, well, one of you did, because somebody told me that it happened that way. It's like, so, that's another challenge, is the relationships, like the different impacts it's had on family, and, the guilt that comes with that, like, kind of related to like living here my whole life. I mean, there's people that probably still live in the city who, when I was totally off my rocker, like could have been someone in this room walked by me in Rittenhouse Square and I was like, fuck you, or something like, shouting at people and cursing people out. And, I probably looked a lot dirtier and was trying to sell junk and, like acorns I found on the ground that I was trying to sell games or something, some crazy, I don't use the word crazy, but some wild nonsense that I was off at different times like that. So like that kind of like shame and guilt, like I hope, there's like the imposter syndrome thing. It's like, all right, so I'm here, I'm stable. Like, what if I run into someone who's like, you were that guy, you were that guy who flipped me off and, threw trash on the ground and screamed at me. It's like, oh, sorry, I don't know how react to that, but, I don't know, there's like, the impact it's had on people who, I don't know, people I can't apologize to, you know, was something I had to kind of manage. And, you know, fortunately, like having family around, you're able to like talk to them about it and work through it. But then there's the strangers and even friends that didn't know what I was going through at the time, who, you know, I've lost in, you know, by just being unwell, so. I guess that topic kind of.
Well, but I think it's important to look at that and be like, not just that, you know, you were going through things, but like you did, like you said, overcome all those things. And despite, you know, your mental illness, and you've achieved things, you know, different goals and things despite your mental illness, which other folks didn't necessarily have to contend with. So you're kind of in a way, you know, playing on a harder mode.
Oh, and if I could even editorialize that, I would say, not just in spite of it, but with it. You know, I can't spite it, because if I spite it, then, you know, it's like, you're not here, like, stay away from me, but, you know, it's like, there's no spite there,
You're
because,
working.
you know, without those experiences, without that vision, you know, there's a lot of things I wouldn't know about the city, I wouldn't know about people, I wouldn't know about different systems, you know, whether it's having to apply for food stamps because I had no money and like I still had to buy groceries, or having to navigate the public health system, you know, like I can't, people without having like the support and the sort of the support network I have and being able to get well again, like if you're locked, if you're in that, if that is how you have to live all the time, like it's a challenge and it's not made to be easy, you know, it's like, it's made to be hard and perpetually, you're made to be stuck.
Yeah.
It's designed to make people be stuck.
Yeah.
Because once I got a part-time job and I made $2 or $3 or $30 more than the bottom limit for food stamps, I could, you know,
And
it's
then
like,
you're just, you don't have, yeah.
you know, then you gotta live off of the income that you have, like, I don't know, that was crazy, that was like, oh, I made $25 above. There's nothing, there's no range there, you know, so like, that's supposed to be enough to live on. I don't know, that was strange, you know, and like the paperwork and like, just the bureaucracy of all of that is just, it is very eye-opening, and you know, anyone, you know, I have family that doesn't live in the city or like they've never had to experience anything like that, whether it's through mental health or through a life circumstance. And you know, if they're like more conservative, it's like, well, we should get rid of these social programs. I'm like, well, have you ever like had to rely on them? You know, have you ever experienced that? Like, I mean, they help, and they're a load of paperwork for a reason, because people don't want them to be easy. You know? Like, I'll pick yourself up by your bootstraps, but like, I gotta fill out paperwork to get the straps. Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
That's my.
I can relate. Also having been somebody who's had to utilize them before, it's not easy to navigate. So do you have, you know, are there some things that you're looking forward to in the next, and let's say like 5 years?
You're looking forward to.
Or plans or goals or your dreams. No pressure.
I mean, you know, I also do creative things, so, you know, we mainly draw cartoons and character design and sort of more graphic type stuff, so trying to learn about that industry and, you know, I mean, fortunately in the city, there's so many resources, you know, especially this seems to kind of be, they seem to be even more building up to a point again, like a sort of saturation point, and there's different places like this, or like print shops, you know, different things, so like hopefully navigating into a more creative path, you know, that maybe not necessarily that's full-time, but like something where that is more, I don't know, I don't even know if I want to monetize it, or what, I don't know, you know, I'm just doing it more, and I've built a practice, you know, that's like another coping mechanism. In terms of like relating it back to the mental health conversation, I always related my creativity to my mania, you know, it was like something I was only good at when I was manic, and at one point, it was maybe 5 or 6 years ago, I went and bought a sketchbook, and I was like, I'm gonna do this no matter what.
Yeah.
I'm gonna do it if I'm depressed, I'm gonna do it if I'm manic, I'm gonna do it if I feel, you know, normal, stable, whatever, I'm gonna do it. And so I just have been steadily, like, over those years, made a more deliberate choice to create things, you know, and try things creatively. And, you know, and that's like another point of pride, that the stability is I'm able to go buy my own stuff, you know, I'm not asking for presents or having to steal stuff from liquor, Barnes and Noble. So, just being able to buy my own stuff and try it, you know, and do what I want with it is a good feeling. It's not something I enjoyed, you know, until, you know, almost being 29, 30 years old. Like I didn't really have steady income like that until this stage of my life. So like, that's nice. And I'm looking forward, I want to maintain that, you know, I want to have like that sort of financial stability, just try and keep it together.
Yeah.
I just, you know, I really don't want to lose that thread of stability, you know, it's just it's a thread, you know, it's not like, I don't know, because some people might kind of equate you build a house or whatever, but it doesn't feel that sturdy, you know, like, because that would be too strong of a metaphor, I think it's just like, it's that tightrope act, you know.
It's the balance, more so way to make it.
Yeah. So you know, that's what I'm looking forward to, is like just continuing that, and hopefully it turns into something more, I don't know, something that's more in that vein. And
Like doing freelance art, or just creating like cards, or you know, different products.
yeah, I don't know if it's t-shirts or, you know, prints, or I want to learn I'm trying to learn some animation and things like that. So, you know, even if it's like, I don't know, hopefully by, that'll be 2027, maybe I'll make an animated short or something.
I find that if you make lists of goals for yourself, you tend to get more traction than other goals. So I need to write it down.
That's a good idea. So, you know, I don't really have a 5-year plan, but that is one of the big ones. I mean, I've been doing this nonprofit work for a while, and that's nice, you know, it's like, but it's not.
For a job, you mean?
Yeah, so data, you know, I did sort of data entry at the previous job, and now I've done database management and some data work, but that's kind of changing again, so I don't know, it's just not really fulfilling, you know, but the thing is like, I don't know, I have personal fulfillment outside of that, you know, so I can't really, anything that can turn into a job can become unfulfilling, even something you once enjoyed, so I don't know.
It's kind of like deciding how much stress you're willing to take from it, if it's that kind of job, or tedium, and, you know, getting that paycheck and then finding fulfillment somewhere else. So what would you tell somebody who was maybe struggling, you know, balancing their, you know, mental health, or who was experiencing things that you may have?
Well, one would be, you know, have you talked to a professional? That would be the first question. because, you know, I can give someone all the advice I want, you know, yes, I guess I've had enough experience, but I'm not certified, you know, no matter how many books I've read or how many therapists I've seen or whatever techniques I have. So like that would be question number one. And depending on the answer to that is kind of guide whatever advice I give next. But it would, you know, just asking questions, really trying to understand what someone's going through. And like I've had those conversations with strangers or with other friends, and it's kind of like, you know, tell me what are your thought patterns like, you know, if you want to share it, if you don't want to share it, like that's okay, you know, but ultimately, you know, some kind of professional, if it's in that bad of a way, you know, you got to get therapy. Like, and the unfortunate thing is a lot of people don't have access or the resources.
Yeah,
Because it's not easy. It's not
Yeah.
cheap, especially if you're going for private. You know, you don't. I mean, I think my insurance would give me 4 appointments a year. It's like, what am I going to do with 4 appointments a year? You know,
Yeah.
I go my quarterly therapist
Yeah.
appointments. That, you know, that doesn't do it. You know, so yeah, but I mean, if there was just sort of like a larger theme is like, in terms of how I would converse with someone is, you know, you gotta be kind to yourself in those situations. And you know, that's easier said than done, but like you get really hard on yourself, you beat yourself up, you're like, you know, you feel unworthy, you don't feel like you deserve. There's a lot of don't, won't, can't is like, you know, and you just gotta look at those little incremental goals, like what did you do today? What can you do? What, you know, what is like that positive step, you know? Or I guess you wouldn't even have to label it as positive. What was that step? You know, what was that do you did, you know? I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I think it does. I think it does. How are you?
7:30.
Yeah, okay. So still got a little bit. So have you ever wanted to, in terms of, I know you said you like creative pursuits, having jobs that are, you know, navigated all this for yourself, and seeing kind of in what ways our system can fail people? Have you ever wanted to kind of, I don't know, like give back? I know that you're doing that today, but like have there been other, I guess opportunities like that you've looked for or partaken in?
Nothing that I've really seized on, but I think something I talked about earlier would be sort of advocating for sort of more understanding around suicidal ideation. And I know there's a lot of talk about it. There's a lot of conversation about it. And, you know, you see the helpline all over SEPTA and, you know, in different places. And like, you know, now whenever there's any kind of story you read about it in the news, whether it even passively mentions it or a story, there's that thing at the bottom, a little disclaimer, like here's the helpline, or, you know, where at the top this story mentions it. It's like, but it is still so very stigmatized, even with, you know, athletes talking about it or celebrities talking about it. Like, you know, you're never going to get broad acceptance for anything, particularly stigmatized, you know, ideas or behaviors. But I mean, the hardest thing of dealing with it is you feel like once you tell somebody that you're going through it, it's going to be like, oh my God, like you're having suicidal thoughts. What, you know, we got to put you in a straight, we got to lock you in a padded room, like we got to get you out, we got to get you safe. And it's like not always that. Not always that severe. It's just like you want someone to know, you know. So I don't know if it would be advocacy for that kind of conversation, like let people just know, you know, and like people who don't understand it, like be willing to just let someone let you know, you know, because I have family members or I've known people who, you know, they talk, it's like a cowardly thing, or it's like, you know, oh, I can't believe they did that to everyone in their life. And it's like, I've told people it's not always, sometimes, you know, it can be just like that. You know, you can be doing very well, but oh, you have everything going from you, have a job, you have 2 kids, you have a house, you have a truck, you have this, it's like,
Yeah.
well, you know, he was home alone and something in his brain said you should just kill yourself. So he tied a rope around his neck and he jumped over the banister and didn't even have time to think about anything else. He might have been perfectly well before everyone left the house, but that one moment, that one thought can be so penetrating, so sharp, and it couldn't even be depression before it. It could just come up. It's its own thing. It's its own condition, you know, and it feels like there is a change. There's that conversation is, I feel like, coming up when I read things about mental health conversations, like suicidal ideation gets mentioned as a sort of its own noun, like it's like capitalized, separate from anxiety, depression, you know, things like that. So like there could be a
It's starting to happen.
shift, but like even if you get that in the conversation, then you have to build a toolkit for the people experiencing it and the people who know someone who's experiencing it, you know, because even if the tools are out there, it doesn't mean someone's gonna go and tell somebody, like, hey, you know, I thought about killing myself.
Yeah.
So I don't know if it's if that's like the advocacy thing I latch onto, but you know, I've done my own personal advocacy about homelessness and mental illness. Like, you know, I have one particular family member who thinks anyone who's homeless is a drug addict, and it's like, no, you know, there's a lot of homeless people who are not at all, you know. And it's like you spend any amount of time on the streets, and the next thing you know, you look like a drug addict, even though you're not doing any drugs. You can't get a shower, you can't get a change of clothes, and you look disheveled, and people assume you're a drug addict. And it's like, I don't know, kind of like destigmatizing that, but just through conversation, never through any kind of like formal work.
Yeah, but I think it's still work, you know, to be done. Because I think a lot of folks, you know, like there's a lot of folks who've never even had conversations anymore.
Yeah, but that's, you know, I mean, I follow the AASP, the American Society for Suicide Prevention. You know, I don't know, sometimes that, you know, even those kind of movements, those kind of organizations, they have their own rules about how you can talk about things. So, you know,
What do you mean?
like if you're giving a talk, this was something I read in like their guidelines, like you have to talk about your experiences in a certain way. So like the conversation gets edited before you can really even like have a meaningful conversation about it. So there's a sort of a stigma involved even within the way they will allow people to talk about suicide and suicidal ideation. Like,
Yeah.
So kind of they're framing your advocacy in a way that might not be totally.
So like you're not like glorifying it, or?
You know, so I can't really fully articulate. It was a little while ago that I read it, so I could be sort of misrepresenting something, but that was something I remember about wanting to be more involved as an advocate within their work, and reading that and kind of being a little bit dissuaded. You know, because if I talk about these things, I have to be totally transparent and unvarnished, and you know, I don't know if there is opportunities for that, but that's kind of like anything related to mental health, whether it's depression, suicide, bipolar, mania, whatever. Like the conversation can't be, in my opinion, can't be sort of editorialized.
Yeah.
You know, you have to, but after that, if it's very open, you have to make a space for kind of decompression and like conversation, because it can be difficult. Whether it's someone who's dealing with it or someone who has a family member that's dealing with it. But, you know.
How's everybody's drawings going? Do you guys want to do a show and tell at the end?
Sure.
For them? Okay.
I would enjoy it.
Yeah. Yeah, wants to see how you really look. Also too, if you want to share, I don't know if you want to share your handles for your drawings. Social media.
Yeah, if anyone wanted to see the things I post on there, I'll share it at the end.
I think they're very fun.
Thanks.
We're actually having like a illustration and graphic arts show here that was juried by the couple Parmigiana, who is partners with some, which is a really awesome space for graphic arts.
Cool.
That's over on Fourth. Have you ever gone?
No, I'll have to get it off you before I leave.
Yeah, they're like right over here, like 2 blocks. Definitely check them out. I think you would have an awesome time because they do like retail stuff and tons of locals, almost exclusively local,
Very cool.
graphic and illustrative work.
And that's why someone told me to say yes to this.
Yes.
The kind of space I want to be in, you know?
It is the kind of space we want in. Yeah, so I just wanna, thank you for being so open, being so transparent. I know I've also dealt, with this kind of stuff myself, and it's a certain amount of vulnerability, I think you have to be to talk about it openly, especially in front of close strangers. So thank you. And I don't know, is there, I don't know if there's anything else you'd like to.
I mean, it felt good, it felt good to talk about some of these things in sort of in this kind of way. I hope anything that I shared is either helpful or, provided some kind of insight. I mean, if you know anybody or you yourself are going through any of these things, like it's a part of the human experience for some weird fucking reason. Our brains have all this stuff that can happen.
Yeah.
Particularly the last 2 years. I mean, for some reason I felt I had some kind of arsenal to deal with all this crazy shit with having to be stuck in a house for 2 years. Like I got stuck in a house for 2 years because I was depressed, and so that was without a pandemic. So
Yeah,
I've been unable to leave before. I've been unable to like talk to people and do things or like enjoy things. So I had a lot of empathy for like normal people, whatever. That's not really something a concept I ascribe to. Everyone's got their weird stuff that they go through, so but people, just average people having to cope with not like being able to do things, and that like having a really sharp impact, and like then like having to experience anxiety that they might not have had otherwise if things just kind of progressed as normal. So I think that this all will like a part of it. It's unfortunate that like this was what had to transpire, but I think a lot of people who would have never, if something like that disruptive didn't happen, would have never experienced a lot of these very neurodivergent kind of emotions and experiences and thoughts. So like I think that'll help frame our concepts moving forward, as long as the world doesn't self-immolate or something. But
that reminds me of like it was where I saw it. This lady was talking about, there's a therapist, and she was talking about how like if you suffer from like anxiety or depression or these different neurodivergent diagnoses, they kind of, it's not that your feelings or anything I don't want to say unusual, but like it's just you're experiencing the extremes more frequently than the average person, because you're generally less capable of, well, I guess your threshold for it is just more. So I feel like the pandemic kind of narrowed down everybody's threshold because we didn't have these other ways of, I guess calming ourselves or, So if anything, I think it should show folks how fragile we kind of all are, and we should just be kind to each other and ourselves as well.
And that's, great sentiment is, kindness and acceptance, like, and, as much as I try to preach that, it's not easy to do, especially living in any kind of urban setting. Is like, you get impatient, you get mad, you're like, that person went through the intersection, I'm the pedestrian, like the indignance, like that kind of,
I feel like I've been experiencing that a lot.
And having been a lifelong Philadelphian is like just a deep love, hate there's like, there's so many things I love about the city, and there's so many things that just very much, so it's like, you know, that it's a challenge in itself being in this like urban environment that, you know, no matter how resilient you feel like you are, how much you build up some kind of toolbox, like it really, it's every day and every moment can be very much a test. So, you know, kindness, deep breaths,
Yeah,
understanding.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's okay to not be okay or to be nothing and
It's
just
okay to
rest.
be
Yeah.
angry, yeah. Yeah, emotions are okay, and
yeah.
I guess. But yeah, thanks, you know, it's kind of not fortuitous, but however, if someone canceled and I ended up being the substitute sitter, so I'm grateful for that. Thanks everyone for coming out to the program. I hope it was good.
Couldn't
Good
even
job.
tell you were a substitute.
He's like a professional.
Drawing model.
Yeah, you have your gorgeous locks. I hope everybody did them justice.
Very fun draw.
Cool.
So, yeah, I don't know if you wanna, you guys wanna put them on here, or just, or you can just flip them around.
I can join the circle.
Yeah.
This is how the left one.
If you, yeah, I was with the preliminary sketches.
I like that.
There's a lot, when I draw your sheets for a little bit, but was catch them on and
Did you do writing and stuff while you were there?
then. Yeah, I was writing down some of the things you said, like the people I can apologize to is something I can really, stuck with me, and then you're talking about like the ideation, like an illness itself. Before, but.
Oh, thank you so much.
Thank you.
I can go next. Or do you wanna go? Okay, got kind of halfway through one and
Yeah.
another one, but I've done life drawing in a solid 10 years. But a pretty prolific
Thanks
painting.
for getting back into it.
Yeah, it was fun. I forgot about it
Yeah.
entirely, and there's definitely kind of a lot to gain there.
Yeah.
So thank you. I really appreciate it.
Cool.
Aw.
Thank you so much. It was very moving, and to draw you as you're doing it was really like a heightened experience of it. So, and thank you just for sharing that.
My pleasure.
I don't think I'll share.
Okay.
But I also want to thank you. It was really nice.
Thank you. Yeah, can I see that black, the charcoal one?
Wait, the both charcoal.
Oh, the top one. Just want to see that, like,
Here. Rubbing hits now. I'm covered in charcoal. Yeah, this charcoal was like really hard, so you had to like really go for it.
You guys mind if I take pictures?
No.
like red on the edge on that.
Oh, yeah. It's like,
No, that's the only thing with charcoal.
I know, your heart is